Awesome. All right. I'm going to go ahead and introduce us if that's okay with you, and then I'll give you a chance to get going from there, all right?
Sure, sounds great.
Cool. All right. Hello to everyone who is joining us. My name is Evan Johnson. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the Community and Youth Programming Manager for Trans Family Support Services. Today I'm joined by a couple of guests, the most important being Briceson, who's going to talk to you on a little bit, but also George the cat, who is currently in my lap, who you might see throughout the stream. And she is also bringing so much love to the stream this early evening, late afternoon. What would you call it? But regardless, Briceson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what is going on today?
Of course. Well, thank you so much. My name is Briceson Ducharme. My pronouns are he or they. I am super excited to be joining Trans Family Support Services today. Once again, it's been a while since I've gotten to work with everybody, and I'm super, super excited. From the last time that I seen everybody or met everybody, I actually started my own company. And I really have wanted to base it in the LGBTQIA plus community. And it's something that really is, a part of who I am, and really something that I really wanted to focus everything on. So today's journey is one that we will take together. And I think the best thing is I've got a few questions that have been asked before the stream, and hopefully we'll get some questions throughout the stream as well that are important to who you are and who you want to become through your makeup journey. So for me, this is a hands-on kind of a thing. So whatever anybody wants to ask, I'm here for that. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Briceson. And it looks like our streaming folks have put up Briceon's contact information and their little logo, Apocalyptic Cosmetics, which that is such a cute, I love the green, first of all. Like, green is one of my favorite colors, and I think that's such a fun logo.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I actually used to, when I lived in Denver, did an AIDS Walk show every year called the Apocalyptic Ball. So this just kind of like falls right in line with everything. And, I think sometimes you have to have an apocalyptic shake up before you can come back to the center and really have your life full and whole again. So that's, a little bit of backstory behind that, but you can also see that on the website at apocalypticcosmetics.com. Yeah, I'm super excited. Shall we just jump into everything, or do you want to start something else first?
No, let's go ahead and start with whatever you want to do.
Beautiful. All right. So when I talk anything when it comes to any sort of makeup technique, I always talk about first skincare. And skincare is something that I think that we may or may not have been taught throughout our existence. I know for myself, my mom was a Pond's cream kind of a woman, and then she would use a little bit of alcohol for blemishes. And now that I've been in the cosmetics industry for 20 years, I know that's like not a thing. Mom, I love you if you're watching. However, we just don't do that anymore. So, for me, my husband, it was amazing when it came to skincare, and he really taught me my regimen, which I've kind of stuck with today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my skin, which is more oily in the T-zone and drier everywhere else. So what I like to normally do is start off with any sort of toner. Now, you can either have a toner that you put in with a tissue and wipe around the skin, or I'm kind of a quicker type of a person. So I have a spray-on toner that is going to open up those pores. So I'm sure there are questions out there of like, what is a toner? Well, for me, this is how I like to break it down. If you think about cleaning your kitchen countertop and it has a spill on it, and you take a dry sponge and you try and clean up that mess, it doesn't work. It just moves everything around. So if you actually use it a little bit wet, it actually absorbs a lot more and opens up everything, so that way anything you put on top of it actually penetrates a lot deeper. So that's a quick little tip and trick. My next thing for me is I really love to use a serum. So what I'll do is just take a little serum in my hand, just a couple of little squirts, rub it together, and then you want to actually press that into your skin. Now, the reason why you want to press it into the skin is because you want that to really sit in there and nurture the skin that you've got. A lot of times when you're doing more rubbing motions, it's not going to really fill into all those, well, for me and my age, fine lines and a little bit of wrinkles here and there now that the Botox is worn off. So you just really want to press that in. Now, I like to really do it until it's more dry, just so that way, once I put on my moisturizer, everything really combats and you're getting not only a deeper focal point into the second and third layer of your epidermis, but then you're also getting some moisture specifically from your cream. And I'm not naming any creams or any products that we're using just because I think that, you know, sometimes that can actually be taken here or there. You can use a lot of different things. And if you're ever curious about those kinds of like different product names or what you think might be good for you, you can always, you know, find me on Instagram, on Facebook, anywhere else, and we can definitely walk through that together. All right. So now we're moisturized, we're hydrated, our skin is glowy, we are ready to go. One of the first questions that I want to break into is somebody asked what would be the best way to conceal facial hair. So even on myself, you can tell I just shaved this morning, but you can really see that I do have a darker facial hair like shadow outline. So that's a great question. There are a couple different answers to this, and I think one of the biggest things with this is it depends on what kind of a look you're going for. So, for instance, if I'm doing drag, which hasn't been in over a year, thanks to, you know, the apocalypse that happened in the world last year called COVID, or if you're doing like an everyday type of a look. Now, you can definitely use something that's going to be more of a peach color corrector or concealer to really hide the hairs on there. But the thing is, you want to be very careful and cognizant of one, how dark it is, two, how much product is on there, and three, the timing that you're going to put and allow that to dry before you put anything on. Because the biggest mistake that I find any of, you know, my friends use when they're using a color corrector is that they put too much on, and then when they're trying to blend together with their foundation, then they've got like an orange line down here, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of what we're actually trying to do. So today am going to use more of a lighter peach tone, and I'm going to be using this little concealer palette right here a lot just because there are different tones in here, but this middle one is actually more of a peachy kind of neutral tone. So just in those areas that I'm really dark is where I'm going to apply that. Now you can see it really brightens up the area, so it's almost like I'm giving myself a reverse like hair color treatment. And that's okay because I want to brighten this up to basically 86. So one thing that I really like to talk about when you're doing anything with makeup, everything is contour and highlight no matter what you do. So throughout this whole entire experience and journey, we're going to really talk about contour and highlight, and there are different and certain ways that you can place things that make everything really stand out or that will also help everything kind of come together. Now, the science behind contour and highlight, and the one thing that I really like to stress with this is that contour and highlight, and the reason that we do it is because to the naked eye, an oval face shape is the most aesthetically pleasing face shape on earth. So when you look at models that are out there, like a Carmen Carrera, a Winnie Harlow, a Tyra Banks, a Cindy Crawford, they all have that very beautiful oval face shape. And so with that being said, we have to contour that and highlight that to give ourselves that like aesthetically pleasing look when it comes to that. So in order to do so, no matter whether it's your eyes or your face, you're going to want to be doing that with different color tones of foundations, contour colors, or even highlight colors. So we're going to go through some basic steps when it comes to building your face. So the first things first, you always want to do your foundation. Then you're going to do your highlight, or I like to call them concealers because we're going to conceal areas that we want to bring forward. Then you would do your contour. You can do your bronzer next, because if you think about it, contour colors are very cool in tone. So when you think about a contour color, it's going to be more of that blue, that purple, that green, or that gray color tone. So when you use bronzer next, it actually warms up the skin and brings life back into the skin so we don't look white and gray. The next thing we would do would be our brows, because you want to frame the shape of your eyes before you do anything on your eyes. After that, I usually do the lips, and then I'll do any sort of cheek color like a blush and then a little bit of a highlight, and then you're good to go. So I know that's a lot. I can also send Kathy and everybody back at Trans Family Support Services a little breakdown of the list so that like we can get that to everybody on the call today. So don't freak out. Don't worry. We're going to get it to you. No worries. Okay. So I've looked crazy enough for the last couple of minutes, but I wanted this to dry. And the biggest thing that, especially when using a color corrector, you need to let this really adhere to your skin before you put on anything else. Otherwise, again, like I said, you're going to look orangey or gray, and I don't want that to happen for you. So I have been in the tanning bed a little bit too often this last week, so I'm a little bit in between colors right now. So I'm actually just taking a couple of colors. I'm taking a couple little drips on the back of my hand. And this is something for, you know, everybody to know too, is that you don't have to throw away your products if you have something that's too dark or too light and you're in between shades of like your summer, winter, fall kind of color tones. Mix them together. You know, you can really bring them together by either like one part to one part or maybe a half a part to a full part. There's really mixings that you can really get into to get to where you are currently. Now you can tell I'm a little bit flushed and red because I did go to the tanning bed this morning. So I'm not advising that to everybody, but I also know that instead of looking like white out on the computer, I wanted to give you a little bit of a like color. So when I do any sort of foundation, I really like to start off more so in the center of my face and then work everything towards the back. The reason is most parts of our skin, especially within the center of the face, have a little bit more of a porous feature. So you want to really stipple that or stamp that onto your face in that center area, and then take whatever it is left over and blend that out. Now, I really don't need, for me and my like coverage of what I like, I don't really need a lot of coverage on my forehead. I really like to let a little bit of my freckles show. So I'll just take, and what we'll do little circular motions on the outside to really blend and buff that together so that everything is just smoothed out nice and perfect. All right. Do we have any questions so far, Evan? Is anybody ask anything?
No, but I did want to say for those of you who are watching the stream, we are able to see your questions if you want to send any in. I believe like YouTube, if we're streaming, I think we're streaming through YouTube and Facebook, right? And so there should be an ability to leave a comment with the timestamp, and we'll be able to see that and ask Briceson questions in real time. Like they said earlier, we do have some questions that were put in with the registration link. That registration link is also how we'll be able to get those extra resources out to y'all after this event is done. Our tech person just let me know, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So in any of those platforms, we should be able to see your questions. Feel free to just send them in and we will get to them as we go.
No pressure there whatsoever, you know. Okay, so next things next, like we said, now we've like put all of our foundation all over the face. And again, you know, creating that really nice just flow with everything. I also, you know, this is something that I learned from one of my old Mac trainers way back in the day. He's a celebrity makeup artist. And one of his biggest things that he taught me that I've never forgotten is, especially if you're doing any sort of photos or anything else, always do your ears. And the reason being is if you take all this color away here, and then you've got these giant red ears like I do, then you're going to really look off in everything. So the best thing for you is to just give a little bit of a touch up. And I'm just stamping that color right on there just so that it takes away that redness. And then again, buffing everything down onto the neck just to be really soft. So hopefully, I mean, I can still kind of see where that highlighter was. I think I put too much on, honestly. So what I'm going to do is actually take a little bit of my concealer that is closer to my foundation color, and then just use whatever is left on the back of my hand and blend those together. Now, we said concealer was next, so we're going to conceal as well. And what I like to call this step really, though, is more highlighting. So what I usually use is just something that's more like a creamy tube. I like something that's a little bit more fuller coverage just because for myself, I get really dark under here no matter how much water I get, no matter how anything else. It's a genetic thing, and like I just can't get rid of it. So what you want to do is just tap a couple of little dots right underneath the inner corner of the eye and then on the outer corner of the eye I'll also take just a little bit down the bridge of my nose because I do have more of a German nose, thanks Grandma. So we want to make her a little bit thin. I don't want that giant nose to be walking in the party before we do. So I'll just take again that same exact brush, and I'm just blending that out and bringing it down onto more of my cheekbone area. And I'm not wanting it too far off from my color because I don't want it to look like I'm a reverse raccoon. So I'm really blending this into the skin and then blending this down onto my cheekbones. And then again, down the bridge of my nose. Sorry, my fingers are in the way. All right. Now, again, you can also use like something like this that is more of a fuller, like heavier cream. You could definitely use with your finger. I just know for me, I like to really blend it in so that it doesn't look like I'm really like chunky here and then, you know, full of everything else everywhere else. So I really like to make sure that that's really truly blended just so that we can have a really nice, seamless, everyday, beautiful look for the skin. All right. So next, we want to contour, right? So one thing that I did learn from a different brand that I worked for is the easiest way to really figure out how to create that balance and symmetry within your face is actually dividing your face into 3 different sections. So these sections are going to be a 1, 2, and 3 area. And the easiest way to do it is actually using your fingers as kind of like a little measuring tool. So when you do this, you want to keep your finger the same exact size. So you're going to be using your thumb and your forefinger. And the first one, you're going to go from the bottom of the hairline to the bottom of the brow. Now, I don't want you to move your fingers. I want you to keep them the same exact like width apart and then go from the bottom of the brow to the bottom of the nostril. Now, you can already see that on my face, this is way shorter than what this area is right here. So when I'm measuring these, I go down again. And then for the third zone or the third section, you're going to go from the bottom of the nostril to the bottom of the chin. So you can tell that on myself, I am the same width here as I am on my top, but on my second section, I'm a lot shorter. So what that tells me is that I need to make this area look larger so that I can balance out everything here. So that's where you really need to be more conscious of your contouring because everything should stay within those little sections that we just talked about. All right, so I'm going to dip into a little bit of our contour colors. I am the type of person that likes to mix the medium tone and then the darker tone just because I like it a little bit more. That's just who I am. I really do like to like be almost in drag, but not in drag. That's just who I am. So, you know, we'll play with it that way. So, like I said, what we're going to do, start off from the center of your forehead towards the hairline. And you always want the darkest part back into the hairline. So if you look, I'm actually pushing this color into my hair and then bringing it forward. When you do that, it actually pulls the skin back more. So you look like you've just been lifted like any of our, you know, housewives have been recently. And we get that really nice, like gorgeous flow to the skin, but it also gives more of a natural like pull to the skin. So again, I'm doing this in more of a rounded feature on the forehead just so that, again, I can take away a little bit of this really squared off forehead that I've got and give myself a little bit softer feature so that I just feel just really feminine, honestly, for me. Like I feel like, you know, when I have very like squared off looks, I look really masculine and I want to really take that away from my own personal self. So that's where I get into, you know, rounding out things a lot more. Now, the second one is very, very crucial. So what I always like to tell any of my students or anybody that I'm, you know, playing with in person, thank the Lord that we're starting to open up again. When you do this second measuring area, I always like to say, until you can really get this eyed out, is take a brush and just go straight along here. When you do that, you can actually see as low as you're supposed to go. So again, taking this color from the back and just bringing that contour up, you can see the difference from this side to this side, how it just pulls and lifts it. you might have a little bit of a brown line like I've got right now. So just take and use your brush. And if you notice, I'm not going like a lot of YouTubers where I'm pushing down. And the reason is when you push down, you pull everything down. When you want it pushed up, you need to push the brush up so that you're actually giving yourself more of that lift to give you that really nice heightened cheekbone look. So that way, I mean, you can see kind of from one side to the other, this looks like it's pulled up more, whereas this is just very like flat. We need to fix that immediately. So let's get over here. And once again, like I said, keep your brush right here until you're ready for it. And then you can take it and you don't really have to use it after that because you'll be able to really, you know, use your mind and motor skills. But until that day, like, you know, this is just a good little tool for you to use. Now, I use whatever's left over on here to, again, just thin out this German nose and make her real petite. Now, the one thing that I'll tell you too is you always want to take just a little brush, kind of like this guy right here, and I'll just dip it into the like medium contour color, and I'm just barely putting anything on there. What you want to do is create just a little marking right on the end, and then I like to thin out the end with this same exact brush and really kind of contour my nostrils a little bit just so everything looks really nice and perfected. And the reason is this: if you just do highlight all the way down, it's going to look like a ski slope, and that somebody's just going to like ski right off of your nose. So you got to kind of give a little bit of a bridge and a breaking point there just so that, you know, rounds everything out and makes it look really nice and perfect, but not overly done. All right, how are we doing out there? Any questions, any comments, concerns?
I do see a question that just popped up. So do you have any tips if someone wanted to highlight or enhance their jawline?
I was just going to get to there. So literally you're like giving me that perfect segue. So thank you. Yes. So to accentuate the jawline, it's one of two things. If you're wanting to take it away, you want to bring it up. So I'll do one on each side so you can kind of see the difference there. So if I look crazy at the end of this, just know that like I'm going to give you two different looks with this. Okay. So the first one is if, you know, some of us, myself, went through COVID and gained the COVID 15 to 35, maybe more. We won't talk about that because that's a sensitive subject. However, I know for me right now, I've got a little bit of extra skin that's hanging right here that I want to take off. So I also want that more rounded. I'm going to bring this up. And if you notice, I'm going in the same exact angle as the way that my cheekbone is angled. So if you look on this side, it kind of takes everything away and rounds that. So you don't really see that double chin. And yes, I can say it, it's mine and whatever. The other way, if you want to make your like jawline more pronounced, you would do just the opposite. So instead, you're going to go underneath and you're going to take away any skin that's underneath there and bring that there. So that way, when you want to, let's say, highlight over the top to really make that a square jawline, you could actually take a little bit of like a loose powder with just a little sponge. And you would take this along that jawline there to pop that area out more so that you've got more of a square on this side, whereas you're more rounded with this side. I hope that answered that question.
I mean, I would say it would. So for myself, who likes to masculinize my features with makeup, that's absolutely something that I've done with taking, you know, where my natural bone is and it's not as pronounced as I would like it to be, and creating that fake shadow, and then with the powder using that to try to create some bone structure there where it doesn't naturally exist.
Absolutely. And again, I mean, you know, I think that's all to that too. If you are trying to create more of a masculine feature too, let's just say even with this side, this is where you would bring like your contour down more to give more of a boxier, more, I think boxy it would be, or more squared off feature look is the opposite. So when like you are giving more masculine features, you want to square everything off. When you're doing more feminine features, you want to round everything out more. So the one thing, you know, when I first learned contouring, and this is like 1906. So this was not necessarily a thing that we still learn anymore. However, you know, we used to always say, do like a Nike check, but that check anymore doesn't balance at all out. So you just want to, like, you know, give that nice full, like, I'm not a mathematician by any means, so I don't know what the actual angle would be, but it is an angle on there. So, you know, let's say it's like a 13-degree angle. You want to keep this same angle underneath the chin and round that out, unless you are creating more of a masculine feature. And then you can do the same angle, but instead of rounding it at the end, you want to bring it down and box that out and then box underneath.
Yeah, I think it's important for those of you who are watching, you know, to just keep in mind the way that you're using your brush strokes in those softer, rounder features versus those squarer, boxier features are going to impact like how typically masculine or feminized a face might look based on makeup. And Briceson, thank you for showing us the difference between those two with contour.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So let's keep going. This is a really, you know, a lot of people have used this now on like all their YouTubes and everything else. This is something, again, I learned in 1906 when I first started drag. So it's called baking. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of it because it has been out there for a long time. So with this, you know, what you want to do is take your powder, especially if you're using some sort of color on the eyes, or if you are trying to highlight areas. What baking basically is putting like a flour like look onto the skin, and you're letting it sit. So I don't use a beauty blender except for this entire process. Beauty blenders, I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm a Virgo. I have OCD bad. Germs are like my enemy. I've also been in cosmetics for a very long time, so I'm just afraid of them. So I literally only use it for this feature because I'm afraid of everything that could go wrong with it, and that's just my own internal fear. But there's that. So when you bake anything, basically what you're doing is leaving that powder on there for like a 10 to 15 minute time frame to highlight that area even more. So that way, when you have your contour, everything blends out and then everything gives you that really nice even all feature at the end. Plus, if you're doing colored eyeshadow underneath, if you have any fallout, you can just take a big fluffy brush and wipe it underneath and you're done. And you don't have to worry about like redoing concealer, redoing everything else. So I think that's where mainstream made it really popular, just because it does blend all of that out so that it looks nice and soft and perfect once it's done. All right, so we've gone through foundation, we've gone through concealer, we've gone through contour. So now our next thing is to warm the face back up. Because when you look at this, I look kind of gray. I look, you know, brown and white, and it's not blended. So this is where we would want to take our bronzer. So when you take any sort of bronzer, all you're going to do is just take a really nice fluffy brush. I love something that looks like this. It's a little bit more tapered. So on certain areas, I can really dive into that contour and add a little bit more. So let's go to more of the softer feminine side. When you're doing this, I like to take it from the back once again and bring that up towards the front. And if you're doing more of the masculine side, you can do that just towards the back and do it up and down to really, again, keep that more like circular to more of that square. Because that's like literally the difference really in the contour that you're going to be doing depending on what look you're going for. So again, I'm just going to take a little bit. And for this, I always like to say, when you're creating any sort of contour on the cheekbones, think of Neapolitan ice cream. I know it sounds crazy, but you're going to hear food analogies from me all the time because I'm a foodie. And I think it just sticks because you see the chocolate, vanilla, and then the like strawberry, right? And you see that in your mind right away. So that's what a like blush, bronzer, and your contour should look like. I mean, give or take, you know, the dark chocolate would be the contour, but, you know. All right. So then I'm just taking a little bit left over and just blending that up in. And again, we're not going any lower than our little zone areas. So everything is staying like directly within that, including the underneath contour. So again, if you're doing more of the masculine look, then keep that more so on your jawline. If you're going for more of a feminine look, go above the jawline. And then you're going to also go above where you put your contour here. So again, it lifts, and then this is going to square everything off more. So far, so good? Okay. Beautiful. All right, next is brows. And brows are a huge thing for the face. You know, everybody always says the eyes are the window to your soul. So I always say that the brows are like the key to the door. You just got to unlock it and really make everything pop. So one of my favorite products that I've actually recently started using, and this is something I will talk about because it's literally life-changing, is the Brow Freeze from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Like, it is just a clear little gel that you can put in your hair, and if you have fuller brows, you can just pull it in and it's done. It is a water-based texture that, like, it's like laminating your brows without like the hundreds of dollars of cost, and it's like life-changing. So for me, I have full brows out here, but for many years of shaving and over plucking and everything else, thanks 90s, this is like more sparse back here. So I'm trying to slowly let them grow and use products to help that happen, but it's not growing fast enough. So we'll just use this to kind of pretend. So with your brows, there are 3 different parts to your brow just as well. Now I'm just combing this through as I'm telling you what this is, just so you all can really hear the steps of the brow. So when you create a brow, just like when you are creating your contour, there are 3 basic steps. So it's the start, the stop, and then the highest part of where the arch should go. I'm laying this brow down just because for myself, I do like them a little bit more laminated down. It usually goes with more of my looks a little bit better. When you are putting this on, normally I would suggest you go towards the outside and work your way in. I know for my brows though, I'm more sparse on the outside. So if I put a lot of product out there, they look like a flattened pancake and it just doesn't look right. So the great thing about this is this product is moldable. So as you're working with it to shape your brows however you would like, it dries down into whichever form that you would like it to look like, and it's going to really sit in that area perfect. So you can already kind of see how it's lifted the brow up too, and it's already going in with the way that my contour looks, so everything's really flowing in those ways that everything goes. Hopefully. I hope that you can see that on there, because I'm like, my camera lighting right now, I'm sorry, y'all, I had some computer malfunction, so I'm on my cell phone, so if it looks crazy, I apologize. I can send you like step-by-step pictures later. But all right, so next we will use a powder, and you can use any sort of color that's closest to either your brow hair color or the color of your hair that you're currently in. Now, if your brows are darker, obviously you want to go with a little bit deeper of a color to keep it similar. Otherwise, your brows are going to look crazy. So I'm going with something that's more of like a taupey brown, just to soften a little bit since my hair isn't my natural hair color right now. And this one is a 2-tone color. A lot of brow products now are 2 tones. And the reason is you want to keep the darker color towards the tail and the arch, and you want to keep the lighter color on the inside just to fill to the background of the brow. So here's a quick little fun trick to do. If you take your brow, and like I said, we're going to go into 3 different parts, give yourself little marking areas. So the start of the brow from the nostril all the way up. You're going to go from the end or the finish of the brow, from the corner of the nose to the corner of the eye. Now, the one thing I'll tell you with that one, be really careful. And the reason why you want to do your eyebrow first is because if you do your eyeshadow and make like an eyeliner or wear lashes or anything like that, you're going to think that that line should be lower. And then you're going to lower your brow down to that area. And then your brows are going to come down too far and you're going to look tired or sleepy or mad. So, you know, you want to keep it very just up and clean to where it is. Now, this last one is super important. You want to keep it from the tip of your nose through the center of your iris or the colorful part of your eye. And if you look now, you've got 3 little marking points where you can basically fill in. So I always like to say at this point, connect the dots. So start from the underneath, give yourself a nice little shadow underneath. And the thing is, you can make your brows either more of a masculine brow right now or a feminine brow. I kind of like something that's in between. Full brows are really in right now, no matter, you know, what gender, and which is great because I love a really nice full, like Brooke Shields looking brow. It's just, or Cara Delevingne. I hope I pronounced her name right because I love her. But anyway, like that full brow is just flawless. So if you look, I'm just taking this angled brush and just coloring in underneath to create this face like shape with the brow. And then what I'll do is just take the spoolie and just color this right on through. And then you've got that full brow in like 20 seconds. Now for me, I'm a little bit more technical, so I really like to go in. You can use other products like a brow pin, and you can take and just create like little hair strokes to balance that like more sparse area out. And then you've got a really nice... Yes.
Oh, you're beautiful. You're fine. Sorry for interrupting. I just saw a question, and I know we were just talking about how the full brow is really in for all genders right now, but in I guess in historical sense or in the past, and the question just came through on our screen, so I don't know if you could see it, but what has been the difference in the past between a more masculine and a more feminine eyebrow?
That's a great question. I think, it's changed throughout history, which is crazy, especially going from like the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s. Brows have been a very different structure between masculine and feminine brow. So most times out of not, a more masculine, traditional masculine brow would be a thicker, fuller brow. Whereas now you're seeing a lot of like drag entertainers that are not necessarily masculine fluid, but they're more of like a fluid person, that they've got more of a shaped brow. For instance, like myself, forever this all right here is fake. Like I've only got a few little hairs right here. So I used to like really tweeze mine. The feminine brow that really started more so in the 80s and 90s were that very thin pencil sharp brow. You can even go back to like the 20s where it was like, the feminine brow was a very like literally an eyeliner that you could just boop, and it was like, the Betty Boop brow. So it's gone through different phases, because then you go to like the 40s where it was more full, and it's changed throughout time. So what's great is that like right now the full brow is in, but you can also wear your brow the way that you want it. And I actually worked for a brow company for a while as well, and what's amazing is that brows have changed so much, and that I think at this point in the world that we can wear them however the heck we want, which is gorgeous. And if whether you're going for a masculine or a feminine look, you can wear them either really pencil thin, or you can fill them in really full. I mean, like, when I'm performing, depending on, if I'm doing Celine Dion, I have thinner, more rounded brows. Whereas, if I'm doing something more like a Carrie Underwood or something like that, I have more of a full but deeper brow with blonde hair. So I mean, again, those nuances of everything have changed too, because you have to think about like Madonna in the 80s also had full black brows with blonde hair. So it's changed. So to the moral of that story, and for me like being long-winded, I apologize, but really those were the basics back in the day. But now, like, just rock your brow however you feel like confident, and whatever makes you feel beautiful, like, do it. I'm all behind it. Like, do it. All right. Hopefully, I mean, did that answer it? Hopefully,
I think so. I think there's a lot to be said about, and we talk about this all the time in the context of how gender presentation clothing wise has changed throughout history. And that also applies to things like makeup and how we structure masculine or feminine faces. So I think it's a great point that you just said of, find the look that you like looking like, and shape your brow to that. So if you're into like a vintage or historical look, being mindful of what brows looked like at that time, or maybe working with what you've got naturally. Or I, like you, did a lot of the plucking when I was young, because that was the early 2000s eyebrow. And so now I'm working with what I now naturally have.
Exactly. And my mom was the same way. I mean, when growing up, like, she was taught to pluck her ever-loving brows away, and now she literally has none. I mean, like, she literally has like a row of one brow. So now when I go home and teach her all these brow things and give her a brow stencil to color it in, which she doesn't use, which whatever. But I mean, like, it's a game changer. Plus, if you think about it this way, so we talked about the structure of the face and how to contour and highlight. Your brows play into that as well. So if you have a fuller brow, when you look at pictures of like yourself as a younger person, you have thicker brows, right? No matter like what, we always have like fuller brows when we're first born to like our teenage years until we experiment and shave them off or dye them or pluck them or whatever. So when you go back to like more of a youthful experience and a more youthful look, that fuller, thicker brow actually balances that out more. So if you think about it too, I brought mine up more to take away more from this area so that this area now looks larger because it, for whatever reason, it rebalances it out. So going with that as well, I want to continue just kind of showing a couple tips and tricks of brows. A lot of folks, especially on YouTube, love to give what I call a floating brow look. And it's terrifying sometimes. And I think the reason is because they really love to use a lot of concealer in this area. So it really highlights the brow. And then it looks like your brow is floating off of your forehead. One thing that I've really found that's useful is more like a concealer stick or even like a highlight stick. All you want to do, truthfully, no matter which look you're going for, whether it's masculine or feminine, you take this pencil and all you want to do is really go underneath the highest part of the arch and bring a little bit forward. Now, the reason is we're going to blend this in with more of a really flat brush. So what you want to do is you're going to warm up the product and you're going to go back and forth with it. And then you're just going to use the paddle of this and pull it down. Now, if you look, this already pulls the one eye up a little bit more and it keeps it really soft looking. So you can still see a little bit of the highlight, but it doesn't look overly done. Whereas this side, I kind of really left on full so you can see what more of a concealer looks like. The beautiful thing about something like this is, okay, let's say as you're first learning your, retrace placement of your brows. Once this is done, you can take whatever's left over on there and boom. Those marking points that you just made so that you could create your map for your brows is gone. And then that way you have your perfect brow and nobody's going to know that you were playing paint by numbers in the vanity. So, which is great. And for me, like, I still use that every single time so that I can get my placement. And I mean, I've been doing makeup now for a very, very long time. We won't say how many years, but it's a very long time. Gorgeous. Do we have any other questions out there? I love that they're popping through. I'm like, please ask me. Like, this is like my favorite thing to do. I want this to be interactive. Whatever y'all need, I want it to be for you.
Yeah, we do have another question that popped up, and I'm wondering if it's gonna come up when we do more of that eye makeup piece. But what about with folks who may have hooded eyes and how to kind of work around that?
Absolutely. We will definitely cover that. That is actually next. So I'm glad that we said that. So what I'm doing right now is just putting a little bit of a brow gel on here because we've worked so hard to keep this shape. I want to fluff up the brows a little bit more. Clear brow gel will waterproof this and also keep those brows looking nice and fierce all day long without them coming off. I know for myself, especially being in California, it is hot. And I am a very perspiry person. I glisten a lot is what I like to say. So I don't want this rubbing off my face. I could care less if my foundation on my forehead comes off, but this, I cannot, like, my brows have to stay. That's just my staple. So, okay. Next, we're going to go into a eyeshadow look. So we're going to do something just basic. So I want to give you, again, the tips and tricks and tools of what you can do to really build on your eye. Now, I did have a question also to go with the one that you had just read me. So let me just make sure I read this one as well. So how do I put on eye makeup, eye pencil, mascara, and brighter shadows? So these are all great questions. And what we can do is kind of cover all of them in one little setting. So that way it kind of encompasses everyone's question. So what I always like to do is start off with, oh, wow. I love it. It popped through. It's like, it already knows. So what we'll do is take just a paddle brush, which a paddle brush, just so everyone knows, is just a flat brush. Oh gosh, like this. So just flat in nature. What I'll do is use one side of it and dip just a little bit into an eyeshadow primer that is closest to your skin tone. Now, what I'll do is I take that all the way up into where the highlight is. I don't want them to mix together because it is a waterproofing formula. It can sometimes get a little chalky when you mix it with that highlighter pencil. So just bring it up to that point. We'll do it on the other side as well. Now, the great thing about this one is the newer formulation is it's actually a waterproof and 24-hour formulation. Not that you ever should need that. And please do not sleep in your makeup. This is like a request from somebody who wants to keep your skin looking gorgeous forever. But there are those days that we have, and I understand that completely. But try and make sure that you wash your face every single day and night. And I would like pinky promise everybody, but I mean, I know that like life happens. So as much as you can, just promise me that you're going to like wipe it off your face. So we'll also take just the edge of the brush here, just dipping that in there. And I like to also go underneath the eye. So you're probably like, oh my gosh, why are we doing something underneath the eye? And we'll get there. But I just want to like really preface that as we're building, because again, we're contouring and highlighting. So here's where we get down to putting on eyeshadow. So we just talked about contouring and highlighting the face, right? As well as basically contouring our brows to make our brows look bigger. Now, if you notice, all the darker parts of my brow are towards the outside, which goes right in line with my contour. And the highlight point is at the highest point that also goes within the same structure. And if you look, they're all within the same angle because you want that to really flow effortlessly. So when you're doing your eyeshadow, it's going to be similar to that. So I'm just going to use like a neutral palette, but I also have a couple pops of color in here. So we're going to focus more so on like the rose gold kind of color with more of these neutral tones, just because I want it to be a little bit more of a basic look so that everyone can get started. And then if you have questions outside of that, obviously you can definitely contact me. We can do a one-on-one and really build for what your look is that you're really going for yourself. But I want to give just a basic strategy. So when I do this, I always pick out something that's more of a fluffier brush, and I start in my crease first. And you're probably thinking like, why would you do that? And here's the reason. You want to create that contour first before we add anything else to it, because you want to make that depth so that you know how far up you should go with it, how far out, and how it just depends again on the look. So for instance, a hooded eye needs to have something brought up a little bit more. So when you think about something of a hooded eye, sorry, there's a hair that fell on here and it's driving me crazy. Okay, got it. All right, so when you think about a hooded eye, it's just a little bit more skin that has come down lower. So realistically, all we need to do is take that color up higher than what your crease is. So what you're wanting to do is just take your medium tone color, and this could be purple, it could be orange, it could be brown, it could be like a gray, it could be, I mean, as long as it's a medium tone color. Again, we're going back to that same exact kind of like Neapolitan ice cream with the eye as well. So when you build your eye, you're going off of like highlights and contours. More times out of not though, this is where you put more shimmery aspects onto your face. And again, when you think about it this way, highlights bring out the sun, so it reflects it, makes the area look larger. When you create a contour, it actually like recedes the light. So you want those type of colors in the areas that you're really trying to hide. So when you're using something for more of a hooded eye, you want something that's more of a matte medium tone to start, because if you notice, I'm not blending right away. I'm actually packing this color on, and it naturally fades from this deeper like color point here up into where the highlight already is. So I don't even have to add an extra highlight color. It's already done. Then I just add and add and add until my heart's desire and how dark I want this crease to go. For me, I have been told, by a couple of my different trainers and the companies that I work for, that I have smaller eyes. So I know for my eyes, even though they are more of an almond shape, I have to really focus my color towards the outside and middle. So if you notice, when I first start this, I'm always bringing it from the middle and bringing it down. The reason is the first place that you put your brush is where all the color is going to go. So if you hold it in the center, it's going to again go with the way that we've highlighted everything and pull the eye up. If you bring it more down here, you're going to get what I like to say is like those little captain hooks, where it like hooks down and it makes you look tired or sleepy. And then you're like, why does my like makeup always make me look so tired? I like spent so much time and it looks so gorgeous, but like this one spot, I just can't get it. Try using this in a different area first. And then like, instead of blending it, stamp it, because then you have more control. A pro tip: and this is something that I tell everyone, so write it down. Keep your pinkies out. And like act like you are having tea with the queen. I know it sounds absurd, but you will have a lighter pressure with it, and you will literally like it's night and day. Because I think a lot of us, especially when we're drawing or when we're writing things, we're always like this with our pens and pencils. We're always like digging on there. So if you're doing that in your eye, number one, you're stretching your eyelid out. Your eyelid's gonna hate you at the end of the ceremony. And number two, it's just not gonna blend the way that you want it to. So if you're softer with it and you're just, you know, more dainty, keeping that pinky out. Like, ooh, we're gonna have tea with the queen after this. It's great. Oh, it's beautiful. It's blended. You know, that's like just a little small tip I could give you. Okay, so next, we've created a medium tone color. Now we really want to like hide a little bit more. And this is where I would go with just a little bit smaller of a blending brush. And I'll go into like a deeper brown with this. And what I'm going to do with this one is do the exact opposite of what we just did here. So here is where I'm going to create more of a sweeping and blending motion, because this is going to really jump in there and give you that really nice full crease without it overpowering what the rest of that is. Can you see the difference there? Yeah. But you can see too, it still blends out. So if you think that it's like, oh, you know what? I want it just a little bit softer. I don't want it to look as like dark and light. Just take your brush without anything else on it, that other crease brush that we had, and just bounce them together. And bingo, you're good.
Bryson, I have a couple more questions that have popped up. So one person asks a question actually about primer, and I think it probably came up when you were putting on your eyeshadow primer, but I would be curious about it in general. Does primer help to smooth out like older or skin with a little bit more wrinkles? But skin.
Sure. For texture purposes, absolutely. So with a more mature skin, it just makes sure that you're really conscious of, and this is something that I usually say too, so thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to even say it. When you are using any sort of primer, if you look even from one side to the other, there is a light layer on here that just looks like skin. I think a lot of us are predetermined to really want to jump in and like spackle everything down, but you're going to do yourself a disservice, and it's not going to look its best if you do that. So my foodie thing that I always like to say is most of us has made a grilled cheese sandwich in our life. So you know that if you put too much butter on the bread, it gets soggy, and then it just doesn't taste as well because it's a soggy texture. Think of your eye in the same aspect. So you're going to be buttering the eyelid or the bread just with a very like thin layer of the eye primer. What it's going to do is it is going to fill in a lot of those fine lines. Sometimes for even more mature skin, you might have to pull up a little bit more and out. Now be careful when doing that. Like don't yank on your face, but delicately use your forefinger and your thumb and just lightly pull out and up to get into some of those crevices. This is also going to waterproof everything. It helps brighten up your colors, and it also helps keep everything on a lot more. So that primer is a great resource for you to use. I also pair it sometimes with a white eyeshadow primer if I'm doing bold colors. So to go back to the question that we had, if you're doing a bright shadow look, try to stay away, and this is for all skin tones, from something that's more of your skin tone. Like if you're wanting something more neutral, more soft, it's just a quick, like everyday type of go makeup, use your like skin tone type of color when it comes to your eyeshadow primer. However, if you are doing more of a bright look, for me, I know I still have to use both of them together. I am so oily on my eyelids, it's unreal. So if I don't use, like, you know, I'll just say I use the MAC Paint Pot as my primer. It's literally like I've used it for 20 years now, and it's like amazing. Like I will never switch to anything else. It's just like you can't, like, it's like literally I'll go to like my deathbed with one in my hand, I'm sure. But so, you know, spread that all over. But if I'm doing a brighter, bolder look, I will take like a white eyeshadow primer, and I'll just show you on the opposite side so you can kind of just see what I'm talking about with like how bright it is. I'll just take the same exact color. I like to work it off the back of my hand. And this is just an actual white eyeshadow primer that, let's say I'm cutting my crease, or let's say I'm trying to bold out a color. This is white So when I put any sort of color on white, no matter what the skin tone is, it's going to look exactly like it looks inside of the pan of the eyeshadow. So that kind of goes with that. Did that answer that one?
I think so. And then our other question would kind of be on the opposite end of the spectrum, typically younger skin or maybe skin for folks who are going through some hormonal changes, right? But somebody left a comment about how their acne can sometimes change the shape of their eyebrows and the bridge of their nose because of swelling. And what are some things that they can do to kind of work alongside with that?
Sure. I think, that's a tricky one. I think that's kind of like a one-off question that we could like definitely work more with. My biggest suggestion is with that though, is when you're creating your contour and highlight and you're looking at everything, sometimes I know for me, like I'll even say like I am not proportionate or balanced at all on any side. This side has always grown higher, so I have to drop my brow down a little bit more. So I think it's just being careful and conscious of really looking at the face shape and breaking it down into those areas, and maybe like shading almost like we did with the hooded eye. Maybe if like, you have a little bit of acne on the one side of your nose and it's protruding a little bit more, let's say on the right side, maybe you cover that up with a little bit more contour in that area a little bit more than you would on the left hand side. So again, I that's a really personal question. I would love to answer that. If you have questions, please like DM me afterwards and we can go through that like more one-on-one. But as a basic kind of a general statement or blanket statement for that, that's how I would normally handle that if like I was in store or anything else like that, is using more of like a contour kind of area in those things. I hope that works.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it answers the question for me. And Briceson, I feel like there's so much longer that we could be sitting here and having these conversations. I want to be mindful of your time and the time of everyone watching. So we're coming up on the last couple of minutes of our stream. And we're going to put out to all of our viewers, the links and everything to contact Briceson and schedule your consultation if you're interested in having those personal conversations. But Briceson, I wanted to open up the last couple of minutes of the floor to you of just what are your thoughts in closing? What are some things that have stuck with you throughout your journey with makeup, or what would you like for our viewers to hear?
I think, for me, the biggest thing is, and, I'm coming up on my 40th year of life. So I think, as we're all evolving as human beings and as we're all figuring out our own journeys and our own patterns, there is no real wrong or right way to do makeup. I think there are tips and tricks and tools that you can learn, and learn them from as many people as you can. I mean, I had 3 different drag moms growing up, and, my mom didn't wear makeup, my actual biological mother. So for me, I, as the kid that was like, she had all this makeup in her thing, but me not learning, from where it was like, I was, always sneaking it and wearing towels in my head and pretending I was Ariel Little Mermaid. And, when my mom was at work, and I think now that I'm, pushing that age that I don't want to talk about again, but I finally found out who I am, and just playing with makeup, I think, has really helped that. So I think through your journey, like, don't be afraid of makeup and don't ever let it overtake you, but let it be a part of you and part of your journey. Because the best part is that you can, use this as a mask or as a shield or even as a tool that makes you feel your own superhero every day. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I could give you. And if you ever get frustrated with it, the best thing that I can say too is, Bob Ross is an amazing painter. And every time he would make a mistake, he would make it into a happy little cloud or a happy little bush or a happy little this. And I think even if you're trying to do eyeliner and it's messing up, let it be messed up one day, because tomorrow might be a completely different day. And, we can always wash it off and start over. And that's half the fun of practicing who you are becoming and who you want to become.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you saying that piece of don't be afraid of makeup, right? As a transmasculine person, as someone who was assigned female at birth, I stayed away from makeup for a very long time because I was like scared of being seen as a woman. And the older I get and the more I interact with gender diverse populations who do play with makeup and who do wear like very bold, beautiful, like especially eyeshadow looks and lip looks, I also feel that courage, and I also feel empowered that I can still be non-binary, I can still be, transmasculine and wear makeup as well. So I'm so glad that you were here today and that you were able to share that with our folks watching today from home.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Hopefully we can do, another one again. If anybody has more questions or more follow-up specific things, they can definitely reach out. Or, I mean, I would love to do this again with y'all because it was a lot of fun, and I'm super thankful that everybody enjoyed it. I've seen a couple of comments come through, so thank you so much for joining me. All the love to everybody out there. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, Briceson. Yeah, I hope you're reading all those comments that are coming in of thank yous
I'm blushing. I'm like, you can't tell because I have foundation on my ears, but I'm definitely blushing.
Good. I thank you for telling us that verbal because yeah, with the makeup, you look great. So couldn't even tell.
You're so sweet. Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, I will let you go. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And like I said, if you need me, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Please reach out to Briceson. Briceson is a fantastic, not just person for doing the work that they do, but also for kind of paving the way and being another non-binary or gender diverse voice in the makeup community. We're huge on supporting this community within ourselves and being able to elevate those voices. So being able to draw some attention to a makeup brand and some cosmetic line that is within the community just feels like supporting family, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being